Mic check. All right, here we go. Welcome back from the break, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Professor Dr. Sean Clavel, and we are here in BIO201 Anatomy and Physiology, the spring of 2025. And we are now in week 12 of the semester. So we're after the break here. We're continuing on through the muscular system. I've got some reviews here that we want you to go over. But let me pull up a quick schedule here and just show you where we sit here in the rest of the semester for us. So let me close this one here. We're here right here focusing on the muscular system. So if you can see here, let's see if I can't highlight that, but nonetheless, right, we're in week 12 slash it's week 12. On 4/17 here, the test will open, right? So on the 17th of April, next week, a week from tomorrow, that is Thursday, the test will open. It will stay open until Sunday. I'll go over some of the more details about what's on the exam here next week. But primarily, as you can see here, Chapter 9, Chapter 10, Chapter 11 material, right? The joints, articulations, and body movements, as well as muscle tissue here, right? So let's just take a look at a quick review. We talked about joints in Chapter 9. We talked about joints, articulations, and body movements. So as it refers to joints, articulations, and body movements, we classified those joints both functionally and structurally. When we talk about function, we talk about how much movement is in those joints. So diarthrosis has a lot of movement, amphiarthrosis has a little bit of movement, and synarthrosis has no movement, right? So it looks like we're going down from a scale from most movable to least movable here in the functional classification. Now, the structural classification kind of mixes it up a little bit. Structural classification refers to the type of tissue that holds it together, right? Or what holds these bones together. So fibrous joints are held together by fibrous connective tissue. For a lack of a better term, it's a ligament. So think about like your sutures are held together by a fibrous, dense connective tissue that hold that together. It's a sutural ligament. The same thing like your tooth in the socket. It's a fibrous connective ligament that holds it together. It's a periodontal ligament. And a cartilaginous joint is either held together by fibrocartilage or hyaline cartilage, right? Fibrocartilage is like we see a symphysis. So the pubic symphysis is held together by fibrocartilage, and hyaline cartilage is called a synchondrosis. So imagine like where your ribs attached to ribs attached to the sternum. So that region is a synchondrosis because there's actually a little bit of cartilage, hyaline cartilage to be precise, that attach the ribs to the sternum. So that is a cartilaginous joint, bone of the sternum, bone of the ribs, and then the cartilage of the end of the rib, which is attaching to that sternum, is the cartilage. And then synovial joints are primarily the joints that were associated with movement, right? Movement of the arms, legs, knees, those types of joints. And then when we drill more down on the synovial joints, you can see that we talk about the 6 different shapes. So when I talk about the 6 different shapes, I'm thinking about more of like ball and socket, right? Like that is a shape of the joint. The one, you have a ball and a socket. A hinge joint is another type. A condyloid joint, a planar joint, where these two bones, like your tarsals or your carpals, kind of slide together. Those are the types of joints that we talked about when we talk about the different types or shapes of synovial joints. And then ultimately the body movements that are associated with it, right? So you have a hinge joint like your elbow, and it flexes and extends. So you can have elbow flexion and elbow extension. And so ultimately the big takeaway from chapter 9 is going to be body movements, right? Like what are the body movements associated? So whether it's, flexion or extension, ab or adduction, or even rotation, and let me think, circumduction, right? Like these are all actions that we would be able to identify if we set a picture or a demonstration of that. So being able to identify both the joint, right? Shoulder flexion, elbow flexion, as well as the movement, right? Internal and external rotation. Chapter 10 is where we get into muscles themselves. So it's broken up into 2 chapters when we talk about muscles. The first chapter here, chapter 10, talks about muscle as a tissue. And please remember that there are 3 types of muscle tissues. You've got cardiac, smooth, and skeletal muscle tissue. You should be familiar with the different characteristics and differences of each. as well as what they look like histologically, right? Like what do they look like underneath a microscope? Then we get into the functions of skeletal muscles. So the biggest functions is movement. The other function is thermoregulation, or maintaining body temperature through like shivering and the heat that's given off through exercise. And then we go through that microscopic and gross structure of muscles. Everything from a muscle like your biceps, which is made up of muscle fiber bundles, which are called fascicles. The muscle fiber itself is the cell. Ultimately, the muscle fiber is contained of these protein strands called myofibrils, which are long repeating patterns of sarcomeres. And ultimately, those sarcomeres are made up of myofilaments. Those myofilaments are the thick filament myosin and the thin filament actin, right? So identifying the steps of a skeletal muscle contraction is ultimately the big takeaway from chapter 10 as well, again, alongside the topics that you see on top of your screen, right? And then finally, chapter 11, just being able to identify the muscles of the body, right? So the muscular system, as it's described, there's a section. So it says, look at the muscle master list, right? So I'll refer you to modules here. Let me give you the student view here. I'll click in. So again, as you come down in here, you'll see that there's a master muscle list right here. That's the list of all the muscles that you'll be questioned on or tested upon. And then there are flashcards, right? So I've provided, I guess we got a PowerPoint document in which you'll have all the information that you need to know about these muscles are located right there, right? So what would you need to know about a muscle like the frontalis? Well, it's located on the forehead. It has an origin, the cranial aponeurosis. It inserts into the skin of your eyebrows. And what is its response? Well, it elevates the eyebrows and wrinkles your forehead, right? Like, what is its action? So these are the different components that you'll be asked, right? Can you identify the muscle? What is the muscle here if I gave you a picture of it? What is the origin? Where does that muscle start? What is the insertion? Where does that muscle end? And as a result, what is the action of that muscle, right? So what is the action of that muscle? And so you can see that as we go into this zygomaticus major and minor, the structures of the face. You'll continue on. Let me give you some like related to the like arm, right? So here's one, right? This is the latissimus dorsi, right? So you've got a pretty expansive origin, right? It starts right here on the spinous processes of the T7 all the way down to T12, as well as the lumbar vertebrae, a little bit onto the iliac crest and your ribs, all those different regions there. And ultimately, it inserts into the intertubicular sulcus, the intertubicular groove located on the humerus. So as a result, its actions are to adduct the shoulder, extend the shoulder, and internally rotate the shoulder, right? So let's take a look at that. We've got, what is this? Extension, shoulder internal rotation. Yeah, there we go. That's a good one. And again, then we've got also the deltoid here, the deltoids, which is responsible for, looks like extension, flexion, and the like. So again, let's wrap that up here, right? We'll be looking at chapter 11, all the muscles of the body. Get into this. Like, I might even give you a little bit of a practice assignment here in the next couple of days where you guys can have some opportunity, or you got the lab assignment too, to go and review the muscles of the muscular system. It's more of rote memorization than anything, being able to identify where the muscles start, where the muscles end, and then ultimately what is the action of that muscle. Again, the concepts of muscle tissue, the cardiac, smooth, and skeletal muscles, the functions of skeletal muscles, and ultimately the steps of a skeletal muscle contraction. And then the joints, right? The body movements and the joints that are associated with it. And so that kind of takes us into the chapter 9, 10, and 11. We'll have that test next week. And then as you can see here, we will finish up with the nervous system, where we'll get into the nervous system, chapters 12, 13, and 14, where we'll go over the different aspects of the nervous system, and we'll have the final on finals week. So there you guys have it. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I'm encouraged by all the work that you guys continue to put in throughout the semester here, and we are on the home stretch. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. So keep working hard. We'll keep getting at it, and thank you guys for your time, for your dedication. Stay well and stay safe.